All right, let's get into the basics of Nightingale. There will be some tips and tricks in this one, as well as I'm going to do in a second video here that will include more tips and tricks, as more specifically tips and tricks and ideas and such that I've come across. Big thank you and shout out to Inflexion Games for having me for all the different times they've had me for different tests and keeping me on board and being so awesome through the entire development process of Nightingale. Of course, it releases into early access on the 20th, so keep that in mind. And if you can sub, if you can follow, if you can do any of those YouTube and Twitter and Twitch and whatever things you want to do, that'd be great. Anyway, let's get into the video and we will start. Obviously, to start things out, when you get out of the beginning portion of the game, on the tutorial section of the game, you will be greeted with the Abeyance Realm choice. You will be able to choose between forest, swamp, or desert. Make sure you choose which one you want to pick. Each have different things, etc. Your Abeyance Realm will be your home, where you will set up a respite, basically. It's important to know that you can build anywhere and you know, however you choose. However, you can only have one respite set up at a time, so you can set up other cairns and stuff like that for your bases. But if you want another respite, you have to move everything over and so forth there. Another important note, of course, if you do want to remove your respite, since you can only have one of them, make sure you have a means to get back to the original one, or if you don't have a means to get back there, you're going to lose access to all your stuff that was there. So obviously keep that in mind. Getting into the overall basic UI and inventory setup here, it's fairly simple. We'll run it down real quick though. You have your listing of stats, different like health, stam, health, regen, damage types, modifications to strength, efficiency, stealth rating, movement speed, resistances, and so on. Obviously, your gear will affect that and so forth that you have equipped. This number here would be your character equipment rating that you have on equipped currently. Obviously, if it does count whatever item you have out in your hands. Let me eat before my character dies again. So, if you are going into a site of power or something of the sort, make sure that you have your highest equipable weapon or whatever it is out, as it will change. Obviously right now I just brought out a thing of food, so my equipment rating went down, right? So very important to make sure you do that if you go to a site of power, because sites of power are, well, these, and they are restricted. There are other areas that are restricted by gear score and such, and you will want a certain number of gear score before you can even enter it. All right, so getting into it more, obviously you have your inventory, your basic stuff. Each item can be extracted into essences. When you go to extract it, it will show that there. Essences you will use to repair your gear and such. Blue and green essences and higher you'll be using to enchant and upgrade your gear and such, so make sure you are more careful with those. Don't just spend them. These you'll use for repairs and such. You'll get them in your Abeyance Realm pretty frequently, or just by like throwing rocks away or whatever you want to do. Unfortunately, it looks like George is behind me like an axe murderer. Of course, you can always repair all your capacity. Your weight capacity can be increased by getting a different backpack or crafting a different one, or, using different materials and so on there. What else do we have here? Obviously, your buttons for each individual item. This is telling me to eat food. You have your health and your hunger bar here. Obviously, you want to keep your hunger filled up as much as possible and so forth. Your stamina and your rest you will actually get debuffs from, and will be much harder for you to move around and everything else. So you want to make sure you're rested. Your weapon setup here. These are tied to your whatever equipped item is currently. So this is like your left attack slice thing. This is a dodge on the dagger that I have on right now. And then this is for swapping magic. When you equip magic to your gear or your weapons and such, you can swap that off and so forth there. And then each individual one will have different things, like these have block instead of dash and so forth there. And of course, this is your hope. Hope is a bit more complicated. Hope is almost like a mana to a degree. Sort of, I guess. So is stamina. It depends, really. But building around a cairn, like upgrading your gear, what else? Just kind of mainly playing through the game will increase your hope levels and so forth there. You won't have to worry about it too much, usually, until you get to like higher level stuff. but something to keep an eye on, of course, when it comes to anything. And of course, you will have gear and all that that will affect these different stats like health and stamina. So it depends on how you build your gear and how you set up different things. Oh, I almost completely forgot. These 3 things here as well are different foods, food buffs and such that you can have on. Make sure you have these filled up as best as possible whenever you can, because they will obviously help you in all different ways, whether it's, you know, increasing your health, your stam, your regen, so on and so forth. So make sure you keep those going as best you can. What else? Oh, we have your realm cards tab here. You can actually take and drop these on the ground for other people. If you're in a multiplayer game, that's also a really important feature that you can do. It's obviously also important to note that there will be different things, like right now it's raining. It will turn into hail and so forth there, so you'll get debuffs from each one. In the desert and such, you'll have heat. That is a problem. You know, all different types of elemental type things for a survival game. You want to make sure that you have something to protect yourself, like, you know, an umbrella or whatever the case is in the event that it's hail, because it will hurt you over time. In the desert, you want to make sure that you are in the shade or shadow of things. Otherwise, you'll start getting debuffed with the heat from there, too, and it's not very fun. This is the cairn. If you haven't seen one before, this is, you know, your base setup type thing for your respite and such, or for just setting up a base, whatever you want to do with it. Of course, it's worth noting, too, that your respite is where you will, you know, when you die, you respawn there. And like I said before, you can only have one of them set up at a time. Also, if you do end up dying, you can go back and get your box. It'll drop a box on the ground of your items. If you go back and get them, it will get rid of your death debuff thing that you have, so make sure you do that. Of course, looking through your map real quick, you can obviously see your respite travel here. This is your realm cards. That's on the current realm. It will actually show you like what's available here and so forth. You can obviously see your map coordinates and so forth there. You can drop beacons if you need to. If it's not discovered yet, it won't show up on the map. There are a lot of points of interest across the map that are smaller that have things there that won't show up on the map. So you have to find those as you progress through on your own. Let's see. Of course, you have your guidebook, which you need to keep attention on as you play through the game to collect different rewards from doing different things. You have your journal, which is your missions and such, your quests and all that. Your building lists. And this actually gets more in depth into the fact of each table that you build, or station, or whatever you want to call it, that you build has augmentation slots, and then like valid augmentations that you can put on it. And then, of course, like, depending on what you tie to it will affect what it can build or what you can craft on it or whatever the case is. It'll also show you like what it grants you to craft at the time. Of course, too, if you are looking to build or craft something, technically this place isn't actually like sealed in, so there's rain inside. If you're looking to craft something in particular, let me see here. So if you're looking to craft something, it is important to note that even though a lot of these icons look identical to each other, the stats on them are not if they are separated in your inventory. So if you go to craft something and you want to implement certain, let's see, if I go to my inventory first, you'll see that this hide right here has stamina regen and this one has health regen. So depending on what you convert those into, like leather or straps or whatever, the same thing with this leather, they have different stats on them. Right? This one's durability, this one's stamina regen. So when you take and convert these into an actual crafted item, right, it will change over here depending on which material you are using. So it's really important to keep track of that. Unfortunately, sorting inventories and so forth is going to be kind of an issue. They are working on different ways for helping with that later on too. So like if I use this one, I will get more health. And if I use this one, I get more cold resist. So it's really, really important to build how you choose and want to build. Oh, my umbrella just broke. So yeah, it's really important to build how you want to, or whatever you're trying to do. You can build and play however you want. Usually when you first get into the your abeyance realm, what I do at least is I find the site of power that's mentioned. I usually come over here and I set up base right next to it. Mainly because it's such an easy, you'll use the site of power for missions and such. And then, of course, like right outside of it, you usually have a trader somebody to talk to, and then a person you can hire. Now, it's usually just easiest to set up here right away, like starting out, because once you do their little mission for them and such, then you can pick up your follower guy. You can equip gear on him just by dragging a piece of gear over to him, right-clicking on it, and telling him to equip it. You can do the same thing with weapons and so forth. And if you give him like an axe, he'll like, as long as he's near you, he'll go and cut down trees and stuff around you, and so on and so forth. So you can pretty much do whatever you want with them. For the most part, you can use them for carrying too. They don't really have like a weight limit to them, so you'll be able to toss whatever you want in their inventory to kind of help you your journeys. Of course, running down the basics of the the option menu and so forth. You have your audio tab. You do have a voice chat that will actually actively input different voice effects if you wanted to and so forth there, which is kind of cool. You have your video options, which are, the arachnophobia mode will actually change the spiders into ants. Kind of interesting. I usually turn on third-person view. Just, it is experimental, so they still are working out some of the stuff with that. You have your FOVs. You have your basic kind of graphic stuff here. It does have DLSS support as well as XESS from Intel. It does technically have TSR, which is AMD based. It does have frame generation as well. Gameplay, there's not too much here. You can turn on your damage numbers. Mine was at 0 originally, so I had to kind of like scale it up a little bit to see them. You have some mouse input stuff, some sensitivity, gamepad input, basic stuff there. Your interface accessibility they will be working on or adding into your key bindings isn't there either yet on this build, so keep an eye out for that. Of course, if you are looking for the party system, you can go here. You can invite or people that you previously played with, create a party, leave a party, whatever you want to here. Obviously, keep in mind if they're in your realm or you bring them to your realm or whatever the case is, that they can access your stuff. So be careful with who you bring in type situation there. And of course, you do have the option down here. If you don't want to see this, you can kind of toggle it off. Or what you can do is there's like a chat log visibility thing here that you can type in, and you will have other options like muting, unmuting, leaving party, invite, who, just in general, just kind of like little chat commands there for that. Of course, this just made me realize when I crouched, you can actually crouch and have stealth-based stuff in the game. It just depends on what you're trying to do. Obviously, it's not like too crazy, but I do know there's like a surprise attack type thing you can get. Of course, this also brings up to another area here. If you find points of interest around, there will be little items and such around them that are usually like more rare to find, or like flowers or mushrooms or whatever the case is, or sometimes chests and so forth. Or there's echoes of hope, I think they're called, that will actually give you either it's like a story thing or a recipe or whatever the case is. If you find them, make sure you search out the area around them. Like I said, they're not going to be marked on the map unless they're like a special one. Of course, if you find a building-based one, sometimes you might have to climb up it to get the certain thing or whatever the case is there too. If you find items like a chest or just random stuff that's built there, you can usually break it down and get resources from it if you wanted to. And then, of course, these walls, that if you find like a cracked wall, sometimes they're hidden behind. You can actually break these walls down, and you might find something behind them. So keep that in mind when you're out exploring, in case you're looking for something special. And with that, I think this actually wraps up this video. It was a bit longer than I expected, so I appreciate you guys taking your time to drop it here and hang out and go over the video. I will be doing some coverage of Nightingale and such, of course, as time progresses here and we get closer to launch on the 20th. Thank you very, very much for hanging out. I appreciate it very, very much. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Hopefully you guys can check out the tips one. Have a good one.